going to do that instead. Here we go.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Excellent. Just going to wait a few moments as people begin to join us. Welcome, Amanda and Sandy.
Hello.
Good morning. Where are you guys at?
Hi. I'm in Michigan, in the States.
Very good.
Cool.
Nice.
I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
Beautiful. What time
wow.
of day is it, or night?
It's 5 o'clock in the evening.
Thank you for
Wow.
sharing your evening with us. Welcome.
I look forward to this. Hi,
Beautiful.
Michael. We met a
Hello,
while
Sandy.
ago.
Yes. So nice to see you again.
Thank you, and you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Give it 1 second.
Welcome back, Amanda, unless it's a different Amanda. Looks like we have two of you here.
Same amazing. I had to switch devices. Usually Zoom just lets me switch right within Zoom, but I actually had to get on. I don't know.
Got it. Wait just a couple more minutes as people continue to filter in. We appreciate you being here. I hear Michigan and South Africa. And I'm also in the United States, up here in the northeast part of the US in New Hampshire. And Suzanne, where are you at right now?
I'm in Georgia, north of Atlanta. So, and Devin?
I am actually down at the beach in Cape May in New Jersey.
Very nice.
2 capes in the house.
Yes. Awesome. So Suzanne, would you go ahead and kick us off, please?
Sure. Welcome, guys. We're so glad to see you. And we love when you share your time with us. Really, that honors us. My name is Suzanne Buchanan, and I am one half of Elevation Mindset. We came together over a year ago and looked at the land space online to see what was happening. And we felt like there was a need for somebody to show up and really go deep when it comes to personal growth and development, because so many people around the world were having a tough time. And we really didn't see any thought leaders stepping forward to step into the gap. Everyone was being super careful and everyone kind of retracted. And we thought, nope, that's not what we need. So Michael was brave enough to dive in with me, and we stepped forward to create what we call Elevation Mindset, a series of conversations on personal growth and development that really take you through an arc of, we design it by the year, that help us really rise to the occasion and just have accountability in who we are and who we continue to become, not just for ourselves, but for each other, because we matter, all of us. So thank you for being here. Today, we're going to talk about elevating our faith. And I want to introduce our co-host, Michael and Devin Bailey. Guys, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Michael Dankloff. Like I said, I'm up here in the northeast part of the United States. And we did try this in 2019, 2020, and it just didn't have the right feel. didn't have the right focus. So I certainly am someone who is more of the optimist. I like to look at what we want to have rather than looking at what we don't want to have. So that's why Suzanne and I really kind of want to come and focus on these traits, these aspects of our life to really move ourselves forward. It's really in alignment with the brand of my coaching practice, which is elevate your best. Because to me, it's about showing up in the best version you can every time you show up, and then the practice that goes on in between it. So the summit for me is that practice. It's the practice of being able to bring my version of some of the knowledge that's out there. So I have come through more of a technical background. So I've actually been in software sales, support, programming, etc. But I really wanted to have this personal connection with people, to have an impact on people's lives that's more than just the software that they use. And Suzanne was honorable enough in order to invite me along for this trip so that we could have these deeper conversations and help bring light to the world where we so need it, because there's so many dark places of both the good and the bad out there that we need to bring that out into the light, is the gifts that we have as well as the challenges that we have, so we can actually be able to move forward. So that's why I'm super excited about talking about things like faith, about gratitude, about vision and belief. So Devin, please introduce yourself, as well as you've joined our cadre on multiple occasions. We appreciate you being here as well.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Michael, for having me again. So for you guys, I'm Devin Bailey. I do a lot of mindset coaching and what I call emotional freedom coaching. By background, I used to be a rugby player. Then I was a scientist, believe it or not, a quantum chemist. And then I was an accountant and an auditor, and spent about 15 years in the corporate world, working for the world's largest professional services firm. Let's say I spent probably the first 30 years of my life working on the science of achievement and completely neglected the art of fulfillment, and found myself 7 years ago in a pretty bad place, mentally, emotionally, physically, and frankly, spiritually non-existent. And over the last 7 years, it's been a weird and wonderful journey of self-discovery and personal development. And I actually ended up leaving my corporate job behind me a little over 3 years ago to step into coaching full time. I primarily work with what I call burnt out, stressed out corporate leaders to try and help them find their way, just as people helped me find my way. But I do spend a good amount of my time really talking about these deep and meaningful, wonderful, more cerebral topics of conversation. And I had the pleasure of meeting Suzanne about 18 months ago, wasn't it? We were down in Atlanta, I think, at a speaking engagement. And I just love the community that her and Michael have created. And I love to show up and talk on these calls and just go deep into some of the, let's call it the softer elements of personal development, because it isn't just about action and making a difference, setting goals and setting fire to the world, although that's all incredibly important and part of our coaching. Sometimes we just need to take a step back and focus on these softer things like faith and grace and gratitude and all those wonderful elements. So I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity, and let's get going.
I love it. Thank you. And it's funny, isn't it interesting that we call these things soft when sometimes they're the hardest things to talk about. They're the hardest things for us to connect with others on. And sometimes they're the hardest things to admit to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the irony?
It's funny, yeah, we call them soft because they're intangible. And I think that's what makes them challenging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. So we wanted to start off the conversation really just to orient ourselves and each other on what we mean when we're talking about faith. And, you know, Michael and I, when we first came to this topic, we had that discussion ourselves. And I don't see anyone else out there in the personal growth and development space that's really talking about this stuff. It's maybe taboo. people may think something like faith can be a divisive subject, but I think that we're all finding that there's something more. We need something more. We're made from something more. And these are the areas that we want to focus on today. So Michael, when we talk about faith, what was your first thought?
I mean, there's lots of ideas that come around faith, and I think the biggest challenge, at least for me, is that faith is something that tends to be related to religion, which for many people that's a great thing, and for some of the others of us, it's not a religious thing. It is more something of a practice of allowing. It's a practice of believing that there is something on the other side of this that I'm doing. It's the idea that the universe is conspiring for us rather than against us. So that to me is where faith draws me in. Is, even as we were waiting here, Suzanne and I were waiting for Devin to show up, and it's like, we just need to have faith that he's going to be here because he said he's going to be here. So and it's, rather than that questioning, that doubting that we so often have. So to me, it's can be a counterbalance to this doubt that I think a lot of, myself included, are running into, of what is there going to be something on the other side of this, whatever this is.
So true. So we were talking about the difference between faith and beliefs for a minute. And for me, when we talk about this, it was more of a worldview and a lens that you live life through. For me, that's what faith does. And it is your overall orientation. And, this is the lens in your eyes. And it really does affect everything you see. I love that thought you said, that the universe is conspiring for us. And what does that do? If we believe that there's this arc to life and the universe, it helps us reduce chronic uncertainty. There's a level of certainty that I have because I'm grounded, I'm rooted, and my lens is firmly fixed with a certain faith orientation. Devin, how does it sit for you?
Yeah, I firmly believe that faith is a practice. I think it is a moment-to-moment practice which enables us to bring certainty in a time of uncertainty. And I think it allows us to combat our doubt. Because if you think about it, anything you want to create, it could be a business, another source of income, take your relationship to the next level, find your dream person, whatever it is, get your body in the shape you want it to be. It doesn't matter. But everything we want is by definition in the unknown, because if you knew it, you'd have it and it wouldn't be a desire. So stuff's going to happen that you don't expect. There's going to be things you need to do that you're not aware of. By very definition, it is unknown to you. And therefore, when we pursue that, and I think a lot of people will only commit to something if they know how to do it. You notice that? They'll only decide it's going to be a certain way when they've got all the pieces lined up. I don't think that's how it works. I think it's in making the decision to do something that the how starts to unfold. And the only way you can be okay with that is on some level to believe that the universe has your back and that you have faith that it's going to work out. So that's what it is to me. It is a blind knowing and frankly a decision to believe that it's going to work out, not necessarily the way you planned, perhaps the way it was supposed to all along. And I don't know that the universe has my back. It's just a decision I've made. And in the absence of that, there's no way I would do half the stuff I do. So I think in some ways, it's actually, it enables us to move through the unknown. It actually fuels us in times of uncertainty because we can hang our doubts on something. And that allows us to take action and move through the unknown.
Yeah, Devin, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you don't know. I think
Well,
you know. I think you've decided
yeah.
because you know. And this is, you know, that brings up that point, right? Is faith faith if it's untested?
Mm.
And there's where that muscle memory is that Devin was talking about. You know, faith really shows up by action, by trial, by fire, by, you know, that's how it develops those sea legs and that endurance.
Yeah, who here has blindly believed something or pursued something challenging, and you have no idea what's going to happen, and as you move forward you get little signs that are like a little pat on the back and you think, oh, maybe I am moving in the right direction. I personally find it pretty hard not to believe that there's something helping us out when you see signs like that. So yeah, you're right, Suzanne. You called me out. I do know, but I only know for my life. I can only speak from my perspective, my experience.
No, but you spoke to risk. You spoke to the risk where you put it all out there. And isn't that really the only path to growth we ever have?
Yeah.
I don't know if there is growth without risk. Michael, what do you think?
I think that when you play it safe, there is no growth. I mean, the plant that's going to grow actually needs to be in fertile soil and the ability to grow, and it doesn't know whether it's going to survive or not. So I very much think that risk is necessary for growth, and that's I think where some of the doubt is that, you know, doubt comes with, you know, in the realm of risk. And when we've actually done things, I know when I've certainly done things that are outside of my comfort zone, it's whenever I learn more about myself. It's when I learn more about the world. It's where I learn what is possible. I can sit and intellectualize it all day long, but until I go out and do it, I don't know whether it's going to be possible or not. So I very much agree that risk is the requirement for growth, and the faith is the momentum that allows us to overcome that risk to get to the place of growth. Because if you don't have the faith to step over that barrier, even if it's only in here or in here, you won't get to that other side. You won't get to that place of fulfillment like Devin was talking about. So,
and I think it's faith in self as well as faith in God, the
yeah.
universe, whoever, whatever you believe in. It's faith in self. It's faith in people around you. It's faith in facts and circumstances will show up when you need them. I think isn't faith and almost interchangeable with courage? That you need to be courageous, don't you, to just like step out and think, well, there'll be something there. You know, there'll be something to back me. I'll be able to do this. I always figure it out. You have to convince yourself of that prior to starting.
Or, you know, it's definitely the fuel behind courage. It's definitely the fuel. Or you really don't know, and you take that ultimate risk. Universe, do what you may. God, show me the way, right? And for our audience out there, have you ever had a time when your faith was tested?
absolutely.
How did that feel?
Yeah, I really find that I jump into something and hold my breath and think, but yeah, really hold my breath. You know, am I being ridiculous? And I'm a person, I like to look out for signs from the universe.
Yeah.
And if I'm really feeling unsettled, then I stop and I thought, all right, now I need a sign, please. And of course, yes, they do come up. And it's been very much ongoing. But I think I'm inclined to jump into a lot of things that I don't have the courage for. And it's the signs that keep me going.
I
For
love
me,
that.
it's the signs that keep
Thank you
me
for
going.
sharing. Beautiful. Anyone else? We've all done that. We've jumped and we hold our breath. I have been holding my breath for a long time right now. So I totally get that and love that so much. You know, it's so easy for us to say we have faith when things are in our control.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, you know, we also, but the challenge and the test comes when things are not in our control. And Devin, something you said kind of alluded to this, that it almost sounded like you take a risk and you know the goal exists, but almost you haven't found your way to it yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like kind of some neuroscience here, when we set our mind on a particular outcome, we actually enroll our neurophysiology to go after it, to go chase it. And I think a lot of us, myself included, will instantaneously get stopped because we'll say, yeah, but how do I do that? I want to build I'll make it up, 7-figure business. I want to find my dream partner. That sounds wonderful. It feels really good. You start to see it in the mind's eye, and then you open your eyes and go, well, shit, how do I do that? The trouble is, I don't think we're supposed to know how, at least not initially, before we commit to it, before we actually decide it's going to be that way. It's in making the decision that I believe that the how starts to unfold, and you start taking steps towards it. You start taking actions roughly in the direction of what you want. You know, we've all experienced things like, I don't know, I'll make it up. You decide you want to go on a trip somewhere and you're sat in a Starbucks and you overhear someone talking about the place you want to go to. You know, all these things are happening all the time that are aligned with what we want to create. But if we're not tuned into it, we're not going to hear that. We're not going to see the signs as you describe it, Sandy. We're not going to pick up on those conversations that might introduce you to someone or give you an idea. And I don't think, if you think about it, there's a tension, isn't there? When you decide you want to do something, but you don't know how can you possibly believe it? Well, you just have to believe. You just have to say it's going to work in order to cross that threshold. So I think it's in making the decision that we actually make it possible. But in order to make that decision personally, I have to consciously decide that someone has my back. And that's where faith comes in. That's the momentum, as Michael described it.
I love that. You know, Devin has been with us several times. We still can't believe he comes back. But anyway, I really think he's like the decision guy, because so much of who we become is based on the decisions we make. And to put faith in as a decision is something that people don't, it's just not done. They may come to something or realize something, but to decide, wow, that puts the locus of control firmly in our court. And that's one of the themes that I think keeps coming back to us again and again. We have so much more power than we realize. And Devin said, yeah, there's faith in yourself. Do you believe in yourself? This is a lifetime journey to really realize just how powerful we are.
Can I add to that, to what Devin said? Because as I'm looking at him, I'm imagining him sitting, or any of us sitting in a coffee shop, just minding our own business, okay? And all around us are these energies, these angels or spirits or guides whispering, what about this and what? And here's our mind going, oh, I'm thinking about this coffee. I wonder where the coffee came from. There's a spirit saying, well, it came from Costa Rica and maybe you should go there. Or can you imagine what's happening all around us? And we have to grab that one thing that really rings a bell and say, well, where did that idea come from? Not knowing that all this energy is around us with all these messages. And these angels or guides or God or whatever you like to call it, the universe is sending out, choose me, choose me, choose me, choose me.
Yeah.
And you do have to have faith in yourself, definitely, because you grab one of those and you go with it. And the rest say, oh, gee, not us today.
Yeah. I love the idea that the universe, the angels, the guides are all like trying to please us. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
They're all like, no, I want
Yes.
you, I want you.
Pick me, pick me, pick me.
Yes, I firmly believe that.
Well, and
You know?
Go ahead, hon.
Here's another dimension of faith right there, Sandy, is if you miss one, that doesn't mean you've missed the boat. There's always another and another and another and another and another, and they keep coming. You know, sometimes you might have the most miraculous day where you notice 4 or 5 incredible things. I don't know, I call them synchronicities or coincidences. Love that word, because it's not a thing. And you think, wow, what an amazing day. Yeah, you noticed 4 or 5 of them, but there were thousands that you didn't notice.
Yes.
You know,
the universe is abundant, right? And really, Sandy, while there are all of these options, I do believe that inside of us, we have a North Star, that we have a base of who we are. We have purpose, we have mission, and we are not here accidentally. And that is part of my faith, that the universe doesn't work in accidents. It works with purpose and clarity. And so all of those options that are vying for your amazing attention, you know, the one that I think you're going to be drawn to, and for different reasons, is probably the one that's meant for you. And it's okay, even if you miss some that are not there, like Devin said, because the universe is abundant.
And the universe has a Google Maps, and it keeps saying redirect, redirect.
Yeah, who here would actually one day like to see the map? I mean, sometimes don't you just stop and you'd be like, okay, just tell me where we're going, damn it. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. You only get to see 200 feet in front of you, you know?
Yeah,
you're
right.
Well,
sure. I look up, I'm like, is this right? Is this right? Is this right?
Yeah.
So I totally get that. Michael, when we were talking about, well, I was saying that the locus of control is with us. What does that mean when our faith is challenged?
So kind of that locus of control, I think, it's something that Devin brought up, and I want to kind of get us back to as well, is this idea of, and there was a session in the Lifebook community this past week about Stoicism as well. So it kind of goes along with that concept, is what I can control is here. I can control my actions. I can control my responses. I can have faith on what I can do. But then there's this whole other world that I can't control, and knowing kind of the difference. But, you know, I can actually step into something without an expectation of what the exact outcome is going to be, other than I can control what I'm open to learning along the process. I am open to how I can actually be of service. I can have faith that my next action, because it's coming from a pure place of I want to help serve and support other people, that it's going to be received well. But I can't control how it's received. I can't control the exact outcome, like Devin was alluding to as well, is that, you know, I may not know the how, but I can certainly say what it is that I'm actually intending to go towards. But I think that locus of control concept, it's such a challenging way to take ownership. Is there are things I can control. There are things that I can receive, things that I can respond to, things that I can freak out about as well. And that's in my control. So Devin, would you actually kind of talk to us about kind of that faith versus faith concept?
Yeah, this is the two to-do lists, right? Is that what you were thinking? This was a relatively recent revelation for me. I don't love to admit this, but I'll share it with you guys. This is a safe space, right? Despite all the work I do, I sometimes get worked up. I do. I sometimes get triggered by things. I sometimes, feel overwhelmed just for, a few seconds until I pull my finger out and get on with it. And I realized that there was a crazy correlation between the moments when I felt this tension, pressure, stress, discord, disconnection, disallowing, whatever you want to call it, the shitty state, was whenever I was focused on something that wasn't mine to do. And I realized in any great endeavor, whatever it is, starting a business, writing a book, taking your relationship to the next level, moving house, whatever the thing is for you, I firmly believe that there are actually two different to-do lists. There's the things that are your responsibility to do. And by the way, you don't have to do all of them to get the outcome. Some will give you a disproportionate result, but there's the things that are within your control to do, actions to take, ways to show up, things to do, things to say. And I'm convinced there's another list which is outside of your control. Said another way, the big guy's to-do list. And whenever I was focusing on something on his list, I felt like shit. It felt too big. It was too unclear. It was too overwhelming. It was just too much for me. And so this is the practice. When I feel like that, I root around and I think, what is it? Oh, I'm concerned with, here's an example, how many people will show up. Oh, okay, right. Well, I can do marketing. I can speak to the right people. I can send out enough emails. Beyond that, there ain't a lot I can do. So I've just visualized myself putting it back on his list and going, sorry, I'll stay in my lane and focus on what I can do. That doesn't mean sit on your ass and watch TV all day. I'm not saying don't take action. I'm saying focus on the actions that are yours in the human physical realm and leave his work, their work up to them. And that continual back and forth, because by the way, I continually reach over and grab shit from his list all the time. And then I remind myself to put it back. And that for me that's my faith practice, to say, well, I'm going to do what's mine to do, and I'm going to do it with everything I have. And the stuff that's on your list, respectfully, that's up to you. And it seems to get me out of that stressed state. By the way, it doesn't mean we don't have problems. Right. This is not the secret to a problem-free life. It means that we're able to get back into a positive frame of mind so that we take action from a place of calmness, measuredness, abundance, as opposed to being frightened cavemen and cavewomen running around like headless chickens. That's the point.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I really like that idea of I'm focusing on what I bring, what my sphere of genius is, what is on my list, versus what somebody else is to do. It's what the universe, the force, whatever it is, it's in their realm to address. Because I'm not omnipotent yet. Probably won't get to that level in this lifetime. But it's that, okay, this is the sphere that I have an impact on. As this, yes, a small aspect of a population of 7.8 billion people, or however many people on the planet now, is what can I impact because of the actions that I take and the energy that I bring to it. I love that. And that once again kind of comes back to that idea of that locus of control, is knowing what that control sphere is, not from a space of scarcity or a space of fear, but from a space of ownership. Is I own this domain. This is where I'm going to show up 100%. I don't believe in the 110% or 150%. I don't believe in that, because I'm going to give 100% of me.
Yeah.
It's in the 4 agreements is always do your best. Agreement number 4 is show up 100%, because then you don't doubt yourself that you didn't give it your all. You also don't give 110%, because then you're not giving from an empty cup. You're not actually sacrificing something you don't have. So I very much appreciate that. I'm going to control this space and do it with excellence.
Has anyone else noticed that when you do show up and you give 100% and you go first, that life tends to meet you halfway. Isn't that quite amazing? You know, if you half-ass it or you don't really try because you don't think it's going to work, guess what? It doesn't really work. But when you just step out there and you just give it everything, sure enough, life meets you halfway. I think that's how it works. We get to go first. You know, what's that? We've said this before, Michael, that cheesy analogy, like, how do you build a fire? I'm sorry, guys, you have to put the wood in first. Like, I'm not going to give you fire and give you encouragement that you'll be successful. You got to put the fuel in first. Come on. You know, and I think that's how it works with these great endeavors, is we got to go first.
I've certainly noticed that in any leadership position, in any kind of time that I'm looking to influence people, is I've got to go there first. I've got to be vulnerable if I want someone to have a vulnerable conversation with me, if that's my intent. And that is that space of faith, is that I'm going to bare my soul here and have faith that the person is going to trample on it, that person is going to receive it with humility rather than ego. But if I don't take that chance, if I don't have the courage to step into that, they're not going to go there with me. And I'm more likely to get the ego and the trampling and everything else. So I very much believe that it's all the different ingredients to build that fire. You know, what is the fuel? Faith is part of it. Vulnerability sometimes is part of it. Risk is part of it. And it's the different aspects of what we bring as our energy, our mana, our, you know, whatever that is to fuel that fire. Thank you for going there. So I guess you've talked about kind of your practice of putting it back to the universe, but what is there? Do you actually write that out in a list? Is it just a mental framework you go through? What is, like, when you are really coming into that, wow, I feel like crap about this, let's push it off. What do you do? Is there a practical, like, in scene thing that you do to actually put that back on his list, if you will?
I love that question. Thank you. So now it's mental. When I first started doing it, I actually sometimes did. It sounds crazy. I wrote two to-do lists, or I call them capture lists. All the things I need to do to get to a particular result. Doesn't mean I have to do all of them. And then as I'm going through it, I would think of you know, the how, things that needed to happen, like dependencies, and I would go, yeah, I can't control that one. Oh yeah, I can't do that one. And I would just write them out and just go, okay, over to you, and get rid of it. Now the process is, I can tell, again, I make this up. I can tell because of the Discord, I know I'm out of my lane. I've stepped out. So then I will check myself. And what I also do is almost like an agreement, a deal, is if I'm going to put something back over there, I'm going to double down on something that's on my list. So I'll say, can I give you a very relevant, real example? So I was really fortunate to land a big speaking gig. It was actually on Wednesday of last week, and it was fantastic. I loved it, for a big corporate organization that I'm hoping to do a lot of work with. And I'm not going to lie, the day before, I don't normally get nervous. The day before, I actually started to feel some angst. And I thought, okay, pause, like, what's going on? And I realized what I was focused on unconsciously is how it was going to land with certain people in the room. And I thought, oh, you can't control that. Oh, dum-dum, you're outside your lane. And I thought, well, hang on a second. I can't control how it lands. What is within my control? Said in a more positive way, what is my responsibility? Okay, I've discussed with leadership in the organization precisely what they want. Check. Designed a great talk. Check. Gone through it 1,000 times. Know it inside and out. Check. What else could I do? And it just hit me. I thought my job in that moment is to deliver it with as much passion and energy as I have. And beyond that, well, what do you want from me? Like, I can't give you anything more. So not only did I put back on his list how people would receive it, I made an agreement with myself that I was going to make sure, Michael, that I gave 100% passion, energy, enthusiasm in the moment. And not only did that get rid of the angst and allow me to prepare in a much more thoughtful way, but it went great. So to answer your question directly, I do it mentally now. But at once upon a time, I did actually write out 2 lists.
I love that practice. I could just, just some of the tools I use. It's easy enough to write out the list and then move it over and say, this one's
Yeah.
yours and this one's
Yeah.
yours. I need to actually do that, I think, at least to practice it, because I love that idea of working that way, is that these are all the things that need to happen and I can't control this one. Gotcha.
Yeah. And something Suzanne brought up, and Suzanne, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so maybe you can share your perspective on it. Is there is these are my words, not hers, but she made me aware of this last time we talked. There is sort of a danger, if you like, there that we're going to not take responsibility. So I think this whole process of back and forth between lists, like we need to look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves and take responsibility, because it would be easy to shovel shit onto his list that's actually yours to do. So there is some critical thinking needed here in this process. Is that fair, Suzanne?
Sure. And we always are responsible for our reaction to the world. So, I believe that pretty much everything that happens, we have attracted. And so we say we can't control what everyone else does, and that is true. However, I do believe that we have significant power in influencing the way the world reacts to us as well, by the vibration we're sending out.
Yeah.
And part of that, it comes from faith. Part of that, though, comes from getting super intimately aware of when you are operating at the highest vibration and that you are sending out the strongest signals of truth, of love, of significance, of impact, whatever the goal may be, that you are acting in alignment with that goal. And others around you will feel it. They may react horribly to it. It may trigger them, right? That we can't control for sure. But we can significantly influence how everyone else around us reacts, because we can either be the thermometer or the thermostat. Right? Are we like, we change to every room we're in? Or do we set the temperature of the room? And I would argue that each one of us has the power to set the temperature of any room we enter. And it's up to us to develop that self-awareness, that presence, that ability to hone our vibration so that we get there. And all of this you can hear in the way I talk is grounded by a firm faith in our power, in our significance, in our ability, in our purpose, in our mission. And when you're working on yourself, your clarity of what that is.
I kind of want to play into a little bit of the middle ground here too, because it's something that I've been working on as well. Is just because you're putting it on that other list, if you will, doesn't mean you're not delegating it to someone else, which also requires faith that that person will deliver on it as well. And for me, I was on a men's team for a really long time, about 2.5 or 3 years, and really got to play with this idea of leading and delegating from this place of, I have faith that you will deliver on this. Had a meeting on Thursday night as well. Collected together some people. Again, we hadn't seen each other in a year, but I was the person who kind of organized it. And it didn't go off exactly how I had planned, but it went off perfectly. And it's that, having faith that someone's going to deliver on what's necessary, as well as that if things do go off track, that it's easy enough to guide things back without making people wrong, without making, a big deal of it. It's from this place of leadership, which I really am playing in, want to play more in, that it's having faith in your team. And because when it comes to delegation, you can either micromanage them when you've given it to them and actually pick apart every little thing that they can do, or you actually enroll them in ownership of it, which requires faith that they can actually take it on, in my opinion. And that's been my practice as well, is if I go in and actually need to pull it apart for them and lay it all out, it comes out with a very different outcome. But I still, when working with the men, it's a matter of, this is the goal we want to get to. And do you need help getting there? And if not, awesome. I've got your back regardless. I have faith in you that you will deliver on this, and look forward to the outcome. There is kind of this middle ground for some of that, because they may totally drop the ball. They may actually shine well beyond what I'm actually going to expect out of the situation. But if I don't have faith in them, it's more likely one than the other.
I think the key there is that you're all clear on the outcome.
Absolutely.
You know, which is kind of true in our application of faith for big things in life. Like if you're not clear on what you want, like how am I going to have your back? Come on, tell me what you want, right? it comes down to clarity, doesn't it, at the outset?
Yeah. Also, with that, take a step back, because this again goes to control. And control and faith, they have a very tenuous relationship. And when we talk about managing people, right? Even that word is filled with connotation of control. And is control really compatible with faith? So we really need to be careful in how we're operating when we take on language. Language matters. When we take on language and adopt language, it can be in the business space, in the professional space, it could be in any realm that you're adopting a language pattern that maybe comes from constructs that might need to be re-examined. So is faith ever really faith if it's not tested? And this is really about things being out of your control, which is Devin's list is, it's not about still controlling the outcome. It's saying, that's not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant phrase. It just helps orient like the madness of the world. And faith also requires, when things go to shit, that it'll end up okay, or that you'll get through it, or that if those people drop the ball and it even falls on you, that there's still the arc of the universe that's testing you.
So what I love about that, Suzanne, is again, we're not saying in those moments where the ball drops and shit lands on you that it's meant to feel good, or that somehow having faith is going to eliminate it. No, life is tough. Life is tough. We have these lessons, we experience these things. Pain is there for a reason, so you pay attention. Except if you have that ability to sit back, see the arc, trust the process, it takes the sting out of it a little bit, and it allows you, even when you're in the shit, to go, I don't know right now exactly why I'm experiencing this, but I trust that one day I'll look back and go, oh yeah, that had to happen. And in the moment, it doesn't get rid of the problem. In the moment though, for me, it makes it, I don't know what the word is, manageable. It's almost like in some weird way, you can almost enjoy the process more because you trust, you have faith that there's a reason for it.
Absolutely. I mean, guys, and it's so clear when you're going through it, when you take big risks, it's not that easy to really nuance this stuff if you're not taking big risks, because your faith isn't activated. It is a muscle, like Devin said. It is a decision, like Devin said, right? And so it's a little bit hard when it's not tested. And if you are not feeling like you have strong faith in your life, then perhaps you're playing safe, or perhaps things have been hard enough that you're numb. And the absence of faith is super real. And I don't want us to let you go without touching upon that. Have there been times, Michael, Devin, in your life where you lost faith?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know that there are some times whenever I personally didn't trust my own decisions because my decisions led me to a very bad place. And then it's like, okay, if I can't handle this, then you handle this. And I took my whole list and put it on everyone else. And that isn't faith either. So it definitely was tested of, kind of this is what has become because of the choices that I've made. And it took me a while to get there. But at the time, it's like, wow, this really sucks. And it was this tough place and in doing so, I put myself in a space where I didn't have any boundaries. I allowed other people to define me and really didn't stand out as who I was, to the point that I know that I said this on past summits as well, is that after I got divorced from a woman that I was married to for 6 years, my daughter, like a month later, said, "That's the dad I remember," because I was such an angry person because of who I'd become. And it's because I had lost so much faith that I had any North Star of my own. I'd lost faith that I had any momentum or impetus. I was just, in many ways, going through the motions, doing my best to become what they wanted me to be. But then I didn't have faith that there was a core of me inside of there that was also worth it at the time. And that it was painful to actually be able to grow out of that. And I'm not blaming anything of it on her. I allowed that to happen. I made choices that led to that. And once again, that took a long time to come to grips with that too, is that this is my life. This is my outcome. This is what I built. So it's rebuilding that is required then more risk, required having more faith in myself and trialing it to see if I step out and share my story, is it going to have people running away, or is it going to be attracting people? If I am vulnerable, are people going to be able to step into that vulnerability with me, or are they going to shut down? And I've had both, but I still continue to push out that beyond that boundary, because where I was before in that space, that angry, pessimistic, stomping around sort of person, that's not who I know I am or who I want to be. It's neither. So I've had to rebuild that faith in myself and in new practices, in new circles of people.
Guys, I don't want to miss this moment, because what Michael just took us through was a point where he had to assume radical responsibility, radical ownership of coming to that point where he realized, I put me here. We are all the result. Our lives are the result of the decisions we make. And it's so tempting. And society, media, etc., they'll all make it so easy for you to blame everything else to make you feel better. And we retreat to those cycles and cultures and habits that help us escape blame, escape responsibility. And not that we should ever feel heavy, but it's okay every once in a while to admit you let yourself down, or you let others down, or you didn't show up. You weren't your best. We're human. We're human. This is what faith is made of, guys. It is the journey, it is the climb, it is the distance that you travel to claw and climb your way back. Because Michael, you came to a point where you knew this wasn't me, you said. You knew you deserved something better. And we believe all of you do. Devin, what about you? Losing faith.
So I would say yes. I would say perhaps differently. I didn't have any prior to about 7 years ago. It wasn't really a part of my thinking, a part of my programming. It wasn't even let's call it a dimension to my being. I was focused only on producing results to please others and to validate my own existence. And we know how that ended in the stairwell of my offices and being in a vegetative state for 24 hours. So clearly, yeah, good times. Yeah, real good times. But I firmly believe that it's through the contrast that we learn these things. So these things needed to happen. Well, we know for sure they needed to happen. Do you know how we know that? Because they happened. But we need this contrast to learn. So I would say I didn't have faith. Now I understand the concept of it, and I'm grateful for that to be a part of me. And in more recent years, it's tested when results aren't coming the way I think they should, or on the timeline I think. So it's what's interesting is it's not that I lose faith in those moments, it's that I realize I'm well and truly inside my ego, and I just remind myself. I actually often say, "F you, Devon. How do you," lovingly to myself, like, you think you know better. You think it should have happened by now. You think you should have X. Well, what do you know? And then I remind myself, oh yes, just a faithful servant. That's right. Okay, sorry about that. And then I get back in my lane and keep doing my thing. So it isn't easy. It doesn't feel good because we all want certain things, certain feelings, certain results on our timeline. But I remind myself that it isn't my timeline. I don't know what I look like 10 years from now. I can visualize it. I can imagine. I can lean into it. I can work hard to get there. But I'm telling you guys now, 10 years from now, I'm not going to be who I think I am now. It's not up to us to define or to, no, not, we can define it because we need that to set a goal, but it's not us to determine precisely the outcome. Said another way, we have no idea what we're really capable of. And it's not our job to stick so closely to timelines and expectations that it stifles our creativity. So those are the times when I lose faith, is when shit isn't happening when and how I want it to. And I just remind myself that I'm a puny human and that there are greater forces at work here. Stay in your lane and do your thing. Focus on, be grateful for what you have, take action in the direction of what you want, and just stop trying to control things, Devon, that aren't yours to control. And that puts me back in a blissful state.
What I kind of heard in that, though, is why restrict your outcome to how you think it should be when it could be so much bigger and better? It's, in some of those affirmations is, I want to be this or something better. And being open to that rather than why cap yourself is, having the faith that this vision is going to come about, to the point that one of my students going through the Lifebook program had one of his 5-year goals actually turn into a quarterly goal that is already done now, because he was just open to the possibility of it coming to fruition. And he's now living into that and starting a new position he didn't think he's going to get for 2 or 3 years from now. And he's starting on like Monday. So because he engaged in the process of visualizing it and being open to something better and having faith that he's becoming the person who's going to live into that space, that vision. So Ramona, did you have a question for us?
Actually, if I may jump in here, I'm intrigued by this conversation. I was in an earlier webinar and I didn't want to get on another one back to back. So I decided to take some time out and I came in late here. I guess one of my questions would be, or proposals perhaps, is that maybe you guys can have this gathering on a monthly basis every day. I mean, every year. So I think that this is a truly inspiring and worthwhile place to come. Also, I think it was Devin who said about, cursing himself when he didn't get the results he wanted, but I think it's better than cursing God. And which I think I think maybe some of us have been there before too. But I was in a webinar earlier with Sunny and Diego and Alex about money. And what I'm coming to terms with is that money has a spiritual element to it. And I'm really had something happen to me. I was in New Orleans when Katrina hit, and trusted somebody to help me with making financial decisions, and I trusted him too much, so that I was busy healing from the death of the love of my life and the storm, and didn't oversee what he was doing, and unfortunately, it caused me some hardship. And over the years, I have been healing, and I really thought I was healing my relationship with money, which to some degree I am. But also, what I've discovered is about trusting people,
Mm.
because I put so much trust in someone else to do what he was supposed to do because he had a fiduciary duty to do it, and he did not. And so it's really been hard for me to come back and that faith, that build up of faith in others, and not only others but in myself, in trusting other people. Like, do I have faith in myself to trust the right people?
Mm.
You see, and that's a big deal. And when Suzanne, you mentioned something about holding other people accountable. Sometimes other people are at fault for things that they've done to us. This is a book here called The Body Keeps the Score, which is about
Yes.
trauma, and about how trauma affects our bodies. But at some point, you need to heal from that and take responsibility for where we are today. And that's where I am. It's like letting go of the past and taking responsibility, because that's all I have. I can't change the past, but I can do something about today. And it's not always easy. And it's because of my newfound relationship with Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior that He's been able to heal me in places that I didn't even know existed. There were parts of my soul that were so deeply wounded that until I really unified my relationship with Christ, there was no way to do that on my own. So I would like that you consider having
Thank you.
hosting this on a monthly basis.
So Ramona, it's great that you asked that. So this is our 16th month in a row of doing a summit like this. We touch on a different subject each month. So we've covered things like gratitude and vision and beliefs and identity. And this month we're actually focusing on our faith and whatever that looks like for each of us. So
Is that through Lifebook or is that through Mind Valley?
So I'm a Lifebook leader, so I actually do promote that on Lifebook, but we've been doing this outside of the Lifebook community long before the Lifebook platform even happened. So, and I'm happy to add you to the list of people who we invite to these conversations. We have the rest of the year already planned out as far as the subjects that we're going to be covering. So things like courage, there's quite a few things, and Devin is actually one of our returning speakers, but Suzanne and I, it's one of the things we opened with. We wanted to have these deep conversations about these subjects that aren't really covered in many of the webinars that are out there. And thank you for sharing us your journey about the money challenges that you have, because that certainly is a challenge, because it is a relationship. And glad that you're able to start that healing process, because it is about the energy, it is about the flow. And we appreciate you actually bringing that with us.
I'd like to just mention this one thing, because in the 80s, I participated in a workshop with Werner Erhard back then. And so after preparing myself for the first meeting with Diego and Sunny just a week ago, I said, I'm going to write this for myself. And I wrote, I understand that money and I are friends. We help one another grow, evolve, and become healthier. We bring value to others in various ways. We grow our dream together and help bring value to the world. And shortly after that, I had this thought in my mind to contribute a couple of $1,000s to a friend of mine. And before doing that, I talked to a friend of mine, another friend of mine, and said, what do you think? Do you think this is crazy? She said, no. She said, I think God is in it. Because a friend of mine works for the government, and she hasn't made a whole bunch of money in her life. She's been more altruistic in her way of serving people. And so she's retiring soon and could use some money to help her with her move and other investments. And so I called her up and said, I really would like to do this for you. Do I have your permission? And she accepted it. But I tend to be more intuitive than I am utilitarian. but I need to learn to bring the two in hand and to better look out for myself and to, like Suzanne said, to take responsibility for myself.
Gotcha. So one thing I'd like to point out, because I'm big on words, you don't need to do anything, but you can choose to. There's a very different energy when you say, I'm choosing to meld these two things together, because it actually activates our visioning skills. It activates our reticular activating system rather than our rejection of the things that I have to do, that I'm obligated to do. So if you look at that language, just be mindful of that, and then have the faith that that combination is going to get you to where you plan on going, and maybe even something better than you originally planned on.
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing, if you will. I think this could be very beneficial for all of you. I'm a sailor. And so sailboats have keels, and they vary in depth, right? They vary 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, some of them, right? And they vary in shape. And I had a friend of mine recently, we were laughing because a friend of mine became 50 and decided he wanted to buy 2 Sea-Doos for himself. And if you don't know what a Sea-Doo is, it's a jet ski, right? And his father, who is an avid sailor, decided to, as a birthday gift, to buy him a towing service for the Sea-Doos. Now, who on earth would need a towing service for Sea-Doos, right? I mean, you think, who needs a towing service for a Sea-Doo, right? But anyway, the funny thing is that he ran the Sea-Doo aground. It's like, how do you run the Sea-Doo aground, right? And the funny thing about that is because, and the reason I mention this is because, you know, my friend has just now come in second on a race from St. Petersburg to Isla Mujeres, Mexico a week ago, 460 miles, right? But the point I'm bringing here is that when we take a look at our goals, we see them in a distance, but we don't realize the obstacles that are underneath the ground, that are under the water. And so sometimes when we have these obstacles occur, just think of yourself as a sailboat and looking at a map that says, you know, you got to stay in the lane. Because if you stay in the lane, you know, it's going to give you at least clearance to get to your destination. But if you try to take shortcuts, you're going to run aground. And so I think sometimes these obstacles, in my, you know, this is my view that I just recently noticed for myself, is that sometimes these shortcuts are telling me, be careful not to run aground. And it's an opportunity to address something that needs to be addressed so that I can be stronger when I reach my destination.
Awesome.
Yeah. Many times when we're distracted and we have those little side trips, there's always lessons in each one of them. And when we have that North Star, we'll always come back. And I think that's the most important thing, is to trust in the vision that was invested in you. And that will always, always lead you back. Devin said, you know, these are decisions. And decisions in Devin's world, in Tony Robbins' world, in the world of coaching are powerful. They define things. They're not wishy-washy. I think, I want, I. No one in the coaching space talks and undermines the power of a decision, because that would, again, lead the locus of control away from our radical, powerful, responsible selves. And we're capable of everything. So I think that's, and thank you so much for the sharing. I love where that's going. So when we bring it back and we look at where we're at now, what are the tools that we're looking at? We want to, you know, we're going to wrap up soon, and we want to open this up to questions and answers if people have other things on their heart that relate to faith as well. But what are the tools that we've talked about through this discussion? And what are the tools in your lives that you're using that help you keep your vision on that North Star? that help remind you or reorient you when it comes to your faith? Michael, what about you? You're a tool guy.
I am, for sure. So I think that what reaffirms or reinforces faith for me is actually a couple of practices that I know we've talked about a couple of times. And one is gratitude, is being grateful for what is in my life now. But then and that's kind of, that I'm here. But the other piece that has been huge for me to have faith of, that I know where I'm going, is also forgiveness of what has happened in the past. Forgiveness of myself, forgiveness of others. Because if I'm holding everything that's ever happened to me against everyone who's ever done it, I can't have faith that humanity actually has a soul still, that there is still goodness in the world, because crappy stuff has happened, and not only by others, but by myself. So in order for me to reinforce that faith, that it needs to come from, sometimes it's wiping the slate clean for the last year, the last 10 years, the last 20 years of how someone has interacted. Because I think that we show up differently every single time we show up. We get a choice every morning of how we want to show up today. And sometimes that choice lasts for 5 minutes, and sometimes it lasts for 5 hours, and sometimes it lasts all day. But I think that we get an opportunity to have this space where we allow us to move into the best version of ourselves. And so we can actually have that North Star and remind ourselves of it. So as an example, for me, I have my life vision statements actually written out from my life book that I read just about every day. And I've narrowed it down to a statement per category. And that, once again, has me reinforce the faith that I have of, this is where I want to go. And I have all the backing behind it, all the justification, if you will, the purpose, the strategies, and everything else to support it. But until I can visualize it in here and feel it in here, it's difficult for me to have faith that I'm going to get there. So that's my discipline, is to remind myself, this is why I'm doing this. This is where I'm going.
Guys, I don't want you to miss out on the other not so secret tip he gave us. Clearing the way so that he can do those things. First was what? Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Super important, guys. We've all not shown up in some way, shape, or form. We've all gone off on too many side trips, allowed ourselves to get distracted. Perhaps we were needy in an area that was unfulfilled and it led us off track, or we were insecure. Forgive yourself. Give yourself the same grace you give others. And then Michael had that great tip, visual cues, right? He writes it out. He has it places he can see. Those are great habits. Devin, what about you? How do you stay aligned?
So I'd say macro and micro. Macro is very similar to Michael, actually, when I go through the process of setting a goal, or it could be daily, weekly, monthly, annual, it depends on where you are in your process. I very much make it a conscious thing to think through faithful elements of that. Like, what do I need to believe to make this possible? Not just how am I going to do it? What do I need to believe in order to be the person I want to be in my business or in my relationship? Because that is going to support and fuel that level of faith. I would say I also personally, might not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally I align when I'm thinking about my why and my purpose to the fact that I am in some way, I believe, not in an egotistical way, serving humanity, serving my creator, because that makes it much easier for my brain to believe life has my back if I believe I'm doing something that is supporting more of life. Does that make sense? Life supports more of what supports life. If you give in a positive way, it's more likely for you to be supported. So that's the macro level that I go through regularly in the process of, we'll call it goal setting, although I call it target mapping. And then at the micro level, we talked about one of them, which is the 2 to-do lists. making a note of the things that need to happen that you cannot control, and continually having that trade-off, because we're always pulling things back and thinking that we have the power to control them. So there's a practice of pushing them the other way. And then I think it was Sandy earlier who called out the fact that there are always signs. And I said I call them synchronicities. I actually have a list on my phone of synchronicities. And every single time I notice something, I write it down. It's a version of gratitude, I think. When crazy shit happens, like completely unexpected coincidences, and it's hard to not think that someone's pulling the strings. So I take a moment and I write it down and I think about it for a second, and I'm just drilling in. Well, there's another piece of evidence, Devon. Life has your back, life has your back, life has your back. And that helps me to reinforce my belief that I'm not just a crazy person trying to do something he doesn't know how to do. I'm actually serving humanity in some way.
You could still be crazy though.
Absolutely. And I think I might be.
But I love that, guys. It's a magical, it's like a magical journal.
Yeah.
You're capturing magical moments of proof where the universe is conspiring for you. That's beautiful. That's so
actually,
cool, Kevin.
I'm going to add one more, if you don't mind. I have something I do, and I'll have more of my clients do at the end of the day, called the Daily 5. And they're 5 questions that you answer to yourself. You can either do them in your head or write them out. I'll just give you one that is most critical, I think, given we're talking about faith, and that includes faith in self, is at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, think of something you acknowledge yourself for, something where you went above and beyond. You did something you didn't think you could, or something you're proud of. You held your boundary with someone lovingly and compassionately, and you backed yourself. And the more you make note of those things, the more you realize, I can do it. I believe in myself. That for me, I think, is my favorite question to answer, is what do I acknowledge myself for at the end of the day? And that definitely builds the faith muscle as it pertains to faith in self.
I love those. Guys, audience, do you have ways? Do you have practices and habits in your life that reinforce your faith? What would those be? We'd love to hear from you. Share them with us.
Do you want them in the chat, or do you want us to talk about them?
Go ahead, talk.
Well, I read the Bible, and I study the Bible with friends on a weekly basis, and we do that. We take one book of the Bible for one whole school year, from September through May, and then we take some time off during the summer. So we do that. The other thing is just not, for me, it's about trusting God as my father, as a friend, and not being afraid. And if I wanted to curse him, which I don't, but to not be afraid to be honest about my feelings about what's going on. That's one thing I'm learning to, as one of the, I don't know if it was David in the Bible, or Paul, but talks about praying unceasingly. So it means talking to God without interruption. And you could be in the car, you could say, "Hey God, I need a parking space." I need or a friend of mine just called me and is having some difficulty. I can't be there to help out, but can you? Will you? Things like that. The other thing is about what I've discovered. I studied communications at Loyola and graduated while I was in my 30s in 1996. And I've had some difficulties and trauma, since then, which have interfered with my ability to really pursue some of the things I really wanted to pursue. But through moving out of the environment and connecting with Lifebook, I've been able to really achieve some really extraordinary things. And I'm in the process of writing a book now. And what I've discovered in how powerful language is, and in asserting things just because you say so, is very powerful. And through a book writing accountability group I attend twice weekly through Lifebook, Last week, because I live alone and I work alone, sometimes it's hard to get, to discipline ourselves to really do what we're supposed to do, right? When that could be any profession, whether you're writing or anything. If you're in your home working alone, if you don't have anybody to be accountable to, sometimes it's hard to stick to the schedule. And so just this past week, I put these words up on a banner. You know how kids, like teachers and in elementary schools, have these banners all over the wall and these poster boards all over telling kids how good they are and all that. So what I did was I put up on the a banner above my television. It says, "My brilliant writing and speech provokes thought, insight, and activity that inspires resolutions." And when
Yeah.
I put that up above my television, and the
Yep.
next morning when I saw that, I just woke up and I lit up, I just lit
Yes.
up.
We all need those affirmations. Those are beautiful.
The other tool I have is having people in your life who constantly, no matter how fearful you feel, or how sad you feel, or how disturbed you feel, or Devin, how crazy you might feel, that they reinforce that you can reach out to them in a text or a phone call and say, "Look, I'm not doing so well in this moment," and most of them have been there too, and so it's about really identifying if they know who you are and they aspire to your potential, and then and can support you in your potential.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of people we want to surround ourselves with.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so that when things feel a little rough, feel a little scary, feel a little uncertain, just to be able to reach out to them and saying, "I'm having a rough day today," or "This is how I'm feeling," and then wait to hear their response and be patient because they're busy. But, trust that they'll get back to you and that they love you. Because sometimes when we don't hear from people right away, we start to question ourselves. Oh, they don't love us anymore. They think, we start to beat ourselves down. Get rid of those tools because we don't need those anymore.
Right.
We need these tools around us that encourage us, that inspire us. And then, like Suzanne said, to help us to become something more than we ourselves can even possibly envision.
Thank you. It's beautiful. So many tools. How about anyone else? Does anyone else have any tools that they share or any practices? Please.
Yeah, this is John.
Hi.
Hi. I was told that I would receive strategies back in 2010. And so I have. One of those strategies is consecrated time. And that's what I do in the morning. See, because I've had the symptoms of ADD. So in consecrated time, you try to be in the present moment because you have to be with God because that's all he is. He's always in the present moment, regardless of when. And so in the present moment, I seek to be filled with the glory presence of God. Because not only do we need to be baptized, born again, but we need also to be filled with his presence to become like him.
Mm.
At least that's my personal belief. And so my want to is to go each morning and God, this time is yours. I want to receive from you because I know that you're the great giver. And I know that all good things come from you. So I want to receive what you have to give me. And I want to receive your encouraging words for today. And those are the kind of things that I seek God for during this consecrated time, this time of focused attention.
I love that. Thank you. And it's so powerful, guys. All of these ways, you might notice a pattern there. It's a time where we're not projecting. It's that we're still and we're receiving. Even the messages that Ramona put up, she's receiving by seeing it on her wall. It's that time where we stop our internal chatter and allow. There's so much power in allowing messaging, allowing responses, allowing our inner guidance and knowledge, and allowing that spirit that's within us that connects to the universe, that connects to everyone on the planet. All of that is based on us being these powerful receivers.
It's interesting because I love the idea of receiving is being open to what's possible. But as we've been talking about, there is that receiving side, but it's also that when we're in that space, when we're in the present moment, when we are connected with the totality of the universe all at once, and we're acting in that space, is we're actually working with the universe. We're actually being guided by the force and working through it as we're interacting with the world. So I am one with the force, and the force is with me, is one of those prayers for me.
Yes.
So it's a matter of finding that thing that you're connected to and knowing that you are. I love the idea of actually having dedicated time to that, because that's a way to, it's like going to the gym in many ways on the spiritual side of things. But then how do we actively use our spirit in every moment? So it is that workout to get our muscles, to get our tone, to actually get our conditioning in for ourselves so that we can actually be working in alignment with the universe.
Absolutely. You know, I've, as somebody who has been to church quite a bit, there's so many things happening in a church at one time. You are there to receive, but you're also there to vibrate, to send a frequency out. You're there to connect with the frequency of others that are in the same vibration. This is all happening in a church at the same time. So there's so much that's happening when we are in community with people. That connection is important. We've talked about accountability groups and having accountability partners, having visual cues. Devin has a magic list, like that has made my day right there, capturing the moments of magic in the universe that remind us, you've got this. We are with you. We are for you. Here's a little bit of our song and dance.
Yeah. Suzanne, I have a question because I was thinking about this when Michael brought it up, because I tend to be more intuitive, and it's really caused some damage for me in a sense, because I just learned in 2019 after I moved to Florida that working with a spiritual counselor that I'm an empath. And when I was in Louisiana, I didn't realize I was an empath, but it was in 2017 when a friend of mine on her deathbed, who's a born-again Christian for 30 years, told me, get out of Louisiana. It's too toxic for you here. And because what I was doing is I was picking up a whole lot of information I thought was my own.
Yeah, I can
was using that to judge myself, and I was beating up on myself a lot. So as Michael said, his daughter said to him, you know, you're not the same man in this relationship. You know, how do we, you know, how do we, if we're intuitive, or if we want to move more in the spirit or align ourselves more in the spirit, how do we do that in a way that doesn't damage ourselves? You know, that's very important to learn that skill, and it is a skill.
Yeah, and this is, it's actually a separate conversation from our topic today, but it's something that I can speak pretty, from a very experienced perspective. I'm to the point where I know when the feelings I'm getting are not my own. And it's taken a long time to get there, but you're totally right. I can go so deep into things that I can, I had one ex-boyfriend who said, don't look at me when we're arguing.
Wow.
because I could read everything, anticipate it before he said it. And I could feel what he was feeling. So I knew where he was going. Right. And so I've had to learn to cut that off because it's not fair for that other person. Right. So I let them have I was actually in his space. I was in his stuff. So, and it was not even a bad argument, but, it was an emotional conversation. But so many times my background, forgive me guys, I didn't introduce myself as well, but I am a mediator, former mediator for the United States Department of Justice. I also facilitate dialogues, and I'm known to help really start conversations that matter. And part of the reason why I have been so effective I have a background in communications, in conflict resolution, mediation, is because I can go into the other side. I can go there. And so Ramona, you're talking about these ninja skills that you have to develop. God bless that you finally figured it out, that you realized where you're at. And now you're going to develop the discernment to know this is mine, this is not mine. And to also, you're going to need that time by yourself though, which but you have a great environment for that, to really, it takes some recovery as well, and to learn how to turn it off and on effectively. So those are a whole different conversation from today, but it's beautiful that you realize it. And your job now is to learn what you can do with your superpower.
So Suzanne, I put my contact information in a private text chat to Michael, so that I can be informed of future meetings.
Beautiful. We'll add you.
Also,
definitely.
I would like for you to take it and reach out to me, because I'm in a position right now in my life where I'm really beginning to see my value, but now I need to learn to find out where do I best suit, where am I best suited to use that in a way,
absolutely,
in a way that I can generate value for the community, value for the world, and also generate income as well.
Absolutely. Guys, what is it like to wake up and realize you have a superpower? Because believe it or not, you all do. And Ramona has just discovered hers. And now she's like, oh, what do I do with these spidey skills? Right? So, but this is each one of us. We all have a superpower, and it's up to us to come to it. This journey is about self-awareness. It's about getting to know where this life is taking us and allowing it to bring out the best in us. And that's why we show up every month for these conversations. We love that you've joined us today, and we want you to come back. We want you to always come back. And if you're crazy enough, you can look us up on YouTube and watch us there too. So Michael, Devin, do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share?
I just want to say thanks. I appreciate it. I think it's amazing when people who are on a similar wavelength come together to have these discussions, because we go way out there. Suzanne, Michael, tell me I'm wrong. Sometimes these conversations go way out there in the cerebral, and I think it's really important that we get a hit of this occasionally, monthly, to keep thinking along these lines and to broaden our horizon. So I just want to say thanks for being here.
Beautiful. Thank you, Devin. We appreciate you, and we're just always shocked and thrilled you show up repeatedly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I too, am grateful for having everyone show up and actually being part of this conversation. Yeah. It's one of the things I've seen in a couple of the workshops around is it's a bunch of people that are just throwing information out there, and it's all one directional. But it's one thing that I really appreciate about, we don't want to just be throwing information out there. It's as much for us, it is a dialogue, it's a conversation. It's one of the things that that Suzanne, when we came together, actually wanted that to be the core of what this is a conversation. So as an example, Suzanne alluded to it, in December, we did your gifts. We're elevating your gifts. If it is, empathy. For me, it's actually more perspective. Each of us has their own way of actually providing that. So it's an opportunity for us to have these deeper conversations. So
Awesome.
I thank you so much for actually being here with us. We really enjoy these conversations.
We love seeing your faces. We love when you show up. We're always surprised when you show up too. So we get excited. I get excited every time. And you know, you might want to put it on your calendars. In November, we're going to have a special vision session to set us up for the new year. And I don't want you to miss out on that as well. We'll start talking about that. We do have a LinkedIn group as well. If you're on LinkedIn, we would love to connect with you there. That way you can find out about our events. We're on Eventbrite, we're on LinkedIn, and we have a Facebook page too, where we just post the events. So, all right.
How might I learn about your next meeting like this? Will it be through Lifebook, or will
It'll be on Lifebook, and we'll also be, like Suzanne said, we have a group on LinkedIn. I put that link in the chat here.
Yes.
And I'll be putting stuff up on.
And guys,
the
if you
Lifebook
want to
platform.
stay with us, put your email in the chat box now, so we can reach out to you when we schedule the new one. We do this every month though, so you know that in about 3.5 weeks we're going to be showing up again. So we keep it on Saturday mornings. For us, we're in Eastern Standard Time. And we love that you've shown up, and from all over the world. We've had people now from South Africa, Israel, Brazil. Where else, Michael?
The UK.
UK, definitely.
Japan. We had someone here who was from Japan as well. So just to kind of give you a sense of what we're talking about next, we're going to be talking about commitment. In May, it's one of my big things. It's one of the pillars of my coaching practice. We're talking about grit in June, accountability in July. So just kind of give you what that schedule looks like. And we do have that posted up in the LinkedIn group, which I have here. And we'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. That's the main platform by which I work. Suzanne's on Facebook. We have a Facebook group as well.
I'm on LinkedIn too, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to just emphasize one thing, because, you know, you talked about some of these webinars where people are just spewing out a lot of information, and what I like about this is that there's this interconnectivity that's occurring, and it's like weaving, and if I'm not feeling woven to you, at least I feel like I'm weaving these aspects of my life together to become stronger and in different ways. So I appreciate that, and I'm at a moment now where I'm ready to step out into the world and give value. And I just need help defining what that is and trusting in myself to deliver that. So
yes. Well, I will definitely reach out to you, Ramona. We're going to talk, and I look forward to seeing all of you guys next month. Thank you so much for coming, and have an amazing weekend, guys.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Beautiful.
Bye, Kevin. Bye, Michael.
Bye, Ramona.
Bye.